So should we begin or do we wait for some time because there are just 14 participants and all?
Please start.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to welcome you all to a productive session on design and development of the question paper for social science. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished A.K. Sharma sir, Regional Educational Officer, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, New Delhi, who has been instrumental in conducting enriching sessions and has been motivating teachers to do better or to be better educationists. We have amidst us Srimati Sunita, a social science teacher from Bharati Vidya Bhavan's Vidya Ashram, KM Munshi Marg, Jaipur, who has a teaching experience of more than 25 years. She'll be sharing her knowledge about setting of question paper for social science. Before ma'am begins, let me introduce her. She is a postgraduate in history and has bachelor's degree in education. She also has a postgraduate diploma in school leadership and management and certificate course in guidance to her credit. She is the recipient of the Best Teachers Award instituted by Rotary Club. We look forward to an enriching session from Ma'am Sunita. Let's make the most of this opportunity to comprehend, acquire, and hone our skills. I call upon Sunita ma'am to kindly take over.
Thank you, Alka ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, now, namaskar everyone. I'm Sunita from Bharati Vidya Bhavan's Vidya Ashram, your host for today's session, that is on design and development of question papers in social science. Namaskar, sir, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to enhance our skills and share our knowledge with co-teachers who are working across India. Now, conducting this workshop emphasizes how important is the task of assessment. And assessment done right is half the goal achieved. Done properly, it can help the student as well as the teacher to understand the level of learning as well as identify the gaps, where do they lie. Thus, it is important to master the art of making question paper, because once you master the art, you can prepare the ones who will crack the code to success. So basically, preparing a good question paper is not only important for the teacher, but it is more important for the student. Suraj sir has already shared few links for some sample question papers, which you can see later on, and these are available in the chat box. Now the topic design and development of question paper deals with two different things: designing question paper and developing of items. So we are going to have a look at two things. First is the design and then is the development. To have a look at the design, we'll look into the circular provided by CBSE. So I'll just share the PPT with you all. I hope the PPT is visible. Okay. Now the circular by CBSE clearly tells us about the design. The first thing that we can notice here is there has to be 50% of competency-based questions, 20% select response questions, and 30% constructed response questions. We'll have a look at the definition or meaning of these kind of questions later on. But right now, 50% is the competency-based questions, 20% select response questions, and 30% is the constructed response questions.
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम, थोड़ा इसको स्लाइड शो कर दीजिए, थोड़ा दिखाई देगा अच्छे से.
Yes, sir. सर ठीक है.
इट्स गुड, लेकिन स्लाइड शो करते हो ज्यादा अच्छा रहता है ना.
मैम प्रेजेंटेशन मोड पे कर दीजिए.
हाँ.
लेफ्ट लेफ्ट कॉर्नर पे मैम ऊपर आना, फ्रॉम बिगिनिंग ऐसे करके स्लाइड शो कुछ.
यस सर, हो गया.
हो गया.
यस यस, नाउ गुड.
Okay, so we were talking about this circular by CBSE, that we talked about 50% of the competency-based questions, 20% select response questions, and 30% constructed response questions. Now, looking at marks-wise, it is like almost 40 marks for competency-based questions, 16 marks for MCQs, and 24 for FRQs. Now, you might be noticing, some discrepancy. That 16 marks are for MCQs, whereas when we look at the question paper, it is 20 marks question paper. So here we have to understand that the 40 marks that are given for competency also include MCQs as well as FRQs. So ultimately, we will be able to look into the section-wise distribution of questions, and that will be same, right? Now, interesting part about social science, I guess ours is the only subject, where CBSE also is not able to decide how much of marks to be given to each chapter. And so many times we've noticed that in the board exam, one or the two chapters are at times missing. Probably CBSE finds that they are not too much important to be tested, or the information there is not that important. So the blueprint for social science is not unit or chapter wise, it is unit wise. Like we have 20 marks for history, 20 marks for civics, 20 marks for geography, and 20 marks for economics. There is no internal division, and the beauty of this blueprint is that the teacher can decide that which topics the teacher feels is important, which topics the teacher feel there is need to assess them more, or we should give them more weightage as probably the chapter is lengthy, or probably the chapter is more important even if the chapter is small, right? So having this kind of a blueprint obviously gives the teacher that free hand to decide how much to be assessed from which chapter. Okay, now and there has been no change. Last year also the pattern was same, and even this year the pattern is same. 20 marks, and the competency 50, and the MCQs 20 and FRQs 30. The design of the paper is same. Now section wise, when we have a look at things, so looking section wise, the social science paper normally comprises of these 6 sections, where section A, we have questions from question number 1 to 20. These are MCQ questions, 1 mark each. Section B is from 21 to 24, and we normally have 4 questions here, and these are very short answer type, carrying 2 marks each. Section C is 29 to question number 29, 25 to 29, and again we have this is short answer type questions, and this section contains questions carrying 3 marks each. For section D, that is 30 to 33. These are long answer type questions where we have 5 marks for every question, allotted to every question. Section E comprising of source-based or case study-based questions. So that is 34 to 36. And here we have internal division as well. 4 marks are divided as 1 plus 1 plus 2. So we go by that only. And important thing to understand here is that normally the 2-mark question is more of analytical in nature. What kind of things can be taken up for course, this case study based or source based, we will check in the development of questions. As far as section F is concerned, so that is question number 37, which comprises of map work, and this carries 5 marks, again with an internal division of 2 for history and 3 marks for geography. Now normally in history we have like location identification. We don't have location or labeling. We have identification where the hints are given, the points or the places are marked, and the student or the child just has to identify the places with the help of the hint given. Whereas in geography, the child has to label as well as mark the place according to the question asked. So this in a way is the design, how the question paper would be divided into different sections, and which section will have what kind of questions. As you can see, normally we do decide a word limit. Now this word limit obviously is just to ensure that the child does not end up writing stories. The child should not write unnecessary details. Giving word limits in a way also gives that confidence to the child and helps child identify what is important. Because earlier the concept was आप social science में जितना ज़्यादा लिखेंगे आपको उतने marks मिलेंगे, and that was the reason why children would not feel very confident that whatever we have learned or whatever we are writing is sufficient enough. Now deciding a word limit, it helps the teacher as well as the student. When we have decided the word limit, the teacher also has to focus on the most important aspects of the question as well as the student. At times, students simply start writing stories trying to give a length to the question answer. So we have to make them understand that this word limit is very, very important. The child should try to stick to it, though no negative marking if the child is going beyond the word limit, but good if the child tries to stick to the word limit. Now moving on to this, this is basically what we have discussed so far is the designing of the question paper. The more important aspect is the development of the question paper. Now, development of the question paper basically would include, how to develop the items. And when I say items here, I mean the questions. So we've discussed that the designing part says that we need to have 3 kinds of questions: competency-based questions, multiple choice questions, and the free response questions. So first we have a look at, what are the multiple choice questions. Competency-based questions I'll take up later on. Now, multiple choice questions basically are the kind of questions where, we have a set of a question and options given with it. Normally, there is one question with 4 options and the child has to select the correct option. Now, different types of MCQs are assertion reason, fill in the blanks, match the column, arrange in a sequence or chronological order, or picture based, or identify with the help of features, which of the following are true about, etc. A good MCQ, should have few things. A good MCQ should be basically interesting and stimulate thinking. It should have a clear testing objective matching with the cognitive domain, should be able to differentiate mechanical learning from real learning. And it's important to note that the idea being tested should be worth testing as per the grade and age of the student. So how to prepare these, good MCQs, which should stimulate thinking or which should be able to differentiate between mechanical and real learning. So here are a few tips. The first thing that we can ensure is that, there should be the language of the question should be simple. The language of the item should be simple and it should be age appropriate. At times, as teachers, what do we tend to do? Normally, what do we tend to do is we try to incorporate unnecessary details, and because we try to use unnecessary words here, the child gets stuck up in the word itself, and so many times that word is not even that important for the question, but the child tends to skip the question simply because the child is not able to understand the language. So as social science teachers, we have to understand that it is the concept that we have to test. We don't have to test the language of the child. That is for English teachers to do, right? So the language of the question should be very, very simple and it should be age appropriate. The next thing, there should be a single correct answer for every question that we are preparing. That is why preparing MCQs it's actually not child's game. You need to take time. When we have to prepare question paper, you need to sit down, settle down, understand what is it that you are trying to test. And when you set distractors, so distractors are the options. When you set the distractors, make sure that out of all the 4 distractors, only one option is the correct option. We may prepare questions. You must have seen questions where we have options are given as only 1 and 2 are correct. That is a different kind of question. But when we are giving only 4 options, so out of those 4 options, there has to be one single correct answer, and that we can do. How we can identify that, whether there is something wrong with the question or the question is perfectly okay. We can always share our questions with co-teachers. When you share the questions with the co-teachers, probably if there is a discrepancy, the co-teacher will be able to find it out. While preparing questions, the way we are working, the mind is so set on few things that we tend to read because we know the answer. So we tend to read the answer only. We are not able to think about the other options. So it's very, very important that we discuss the questions with the co-teacher so that we can find out if there is something beyond that the child can think and the child can answer the question in a different manner. So ensure that there is one single correct answer. If possible, use a good stimuli. And why I am saying if possible? Because in every MCQ, we cannot give a stimuli, right? Now, what is a stimuli? A stimuli is something that makes the child think or makes the. It can be an image, it can be a news item, it can be a bar graph, a pie chart, or data, as we have been using. Social science has, we can use multiple things. Whatever you feel like, you can use those kind of things, because almost all the chapters you can use either images or you can use bar graph, economics, geography. All these subjects give us that freedom. So use a good stimuli as far as, wherever it is possible to use, so that the child feels, when the child looks at the paper, at least there should be something familiar. The child should feel some pictures and something is there where he or she can apply his brains and work on it. So use a good stimuli. Also avoid double no questions. We may have, at times when we are creating that stem for the question, that is the main question. So what we write, we say, identify which of the following is not incorrect. So not incorrect, not false. Which of the following is not false for the so-and-so process or the concept, or let us say which of the following is not false for Russian Revolution, for French Revolution, okay, or for agriculture in India, or which of the following is not false for globalization. So this not false, it is a double no. So avoid these kind of questions because they simply tend to confuse the child. Okay, it's not about testing. They take the time of the child, and obviously 1 mark questions are not to spend so much of time. Then avoid lengthy paragraphs. When I say use a good stimuli, please understand when I'm talking about a news item or something like that, obviously I do not mean lengthy paragraphs. You can use 2 lines, 3 lines probably, but lengthy paragraphs at times we give, and then we expect the child to read that and answer that for 1 mark. That's really not justified that the child uses or reads that lengthy paragraph. Also, we should avoid, we should use distractors. Distractors are the options given. So we should use distractors which are close or seemingly answers. And you must have come across a few questions, where they say which of the following is the most suitable. So when we say most suitable, we are actually talking about that all the 4 answers probably are correct answers. They are neck to neck. Like let's say in civics, you have a question that in Hindi was not decided the national language of India for the following reasons. So identify the most suitable. There you have one as it was the language of less than 40% people, or because English was being used, or because people protested, right? Now, all these are the probable answers, but the question says most suitable, right? So, distractors should be close answers. They may be wrong, and like in this case, they were correct. All these statements are correct, but distractors most of the times are the closest answers, but not the real answers. So there has to be just one answer. Also, avoid distractors like all of the above or none of the above. This way we are just missing a chance to give a good distractor to the children. And also try that the distractors are of equal length. When we create distractors, so 2 distractors are very short, 2 are very long at times, that only makes it easy for the child to identify that which of the distractors is the answer. So try that the distractors are of the same length. So I hope this concept of MCQs is clear to everyone. In case anybody has a question. Okay, we move on to the next slide, and that is FRQs. Now, what are FRQs? FRQs are free response questions. FRQs, as we say, free response questions can also be termed as constructed response questions. Now, why I'm saying free? Because it is the child who's free to write the way child wants to write. Now, this again means that the child can use book expression as well. Okay, using book expression does not make a question as, like that. When the child is taking expression from the book, that also will be considered as a free response question. And if the child is using his or her own expression, that also will be treated as a free response question. So the free response question or the constructed response questions are the questions where as paper setters, we do not give any choice or option to the child, as answer. We are not helping the child answer things. We are not giving options to answer the things. The child has to think or create his or her own answer in his or her own, right? Now, these normally are like what we have seen are either the very short answer type questions or short answer type questions or long answer type questions. So all these are FRQs. Important thing to note here is that fill in the blanks, if asked with given choices, will be treated as MCQ. But fill in the blanks without giving options will be treated as an FRQ. So fill in the blanks can be used Either ways, it can be an MCQ if options are given, or it can be FRQ question if no options are given. Also here we can see that assertion reason kind of questions can be used in MCQs as well as FRQs. How they can be used as FRQ questions? When we seek explanation for the child, for child's answer, so then it becomes an FRQ. Like let us say the child feels where we have the options, both are correct, but A does not explain, R does not explain A, or R explains A. So we want the child to explain, okay, how do you feel R explains A, or why do you feel R does not explain A? So when the child is giving that kind of explanation, so assertion reason kind of question also becomes an FR, right? Okay. Now, how to create good FRQs? As you have seen, again, the first thing is that there has to be one clear objective. The testing objective for the question is very, very clear. Testing objective is like, what do you want to test when you are giving that question to the child? You want to test the concept. Let us say you want to test whether the child has understood the reasons behind French Revolution. Or if we move to class 10, let us say you want to understand the reasons, where the factors which help factors which help in globalization, right? So your testing objective is factors which help in globalization. Accordingly, you will frame a question. So you can ask the child to list or to mention or to discuss factors which help globalization, right? So the testing objective has to be very, very clear. Or let us say you want to know about the institutional changes, whether the child has been able to understand what are institutional changes and how did they help agriculture, or what are the institutional changes which help agriculture. So accordingly, you will frame a question. So first thing, when you start preparing a question, when you want to develop an item, please identify what is your testing objective. Do not prepare questions, and the moment you start doing that, the moment you start identifying your testing objective, slowly you will identify that the way you are framing your questions, that has changed. Because every time if you are having only one testing objective, you will automatically get to know that the question paper is going on the same line, right? So when you write testing objective, then you will identify whether the questions are coming from different domains or the questions are of same kind. So that we have to understand. And as I use the word domain, the second important thing for preparing FRQs is that the question has to be in line with the cognitive domains. I'll talk about the cognitive domains in the next slide when we talk about it, right? Also, for FRQs especially, though even in MCQs it is important, but FRQs, since it is just, we say one line question or whatever, we must provide full information. At times, we as teachers feel, we are so much aware, okay, ये पता है मुझे कि ये मैं फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन के बारे में पूछ रहा हूँ, या ये पता है मुझे कि ये मैंने ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन के बारे में क्वेश्चन पूछा, या ये मेरा क्वेश्चन डेवलपमेंट के बारे में है, या ये सेक्टर्स ऑफ इकोनॉमी के बारे में है, or this question is about minerals and energies. You are aware as a teacher. But when you prepare a question, it is very, very clear. Please take it that the child also needs to understand that you are asking about the methods of conservation of energy resources in India or in general. Because if you simply ask, okay, explain the methods of energy conservation, right? The child may write answer from anywhere in the world and the answer would not be wrong. But when you specify the methods of energy conservation in India, then obviously the child has to specify things from India. Or let us say, when we say which factors help globalization in India, so that means we are talking about the factors especially which were helpful in the process of globalization in India. So we have to be very, very careful. At times, we are asking about an event and we fail to mention the year of the event. For example, Russian Revolution, right, in class 9, though we are talking about class 10, but the example can be taken up. When you're talking about Russian reasons responsible for Russian Revolution, now the revolution occurred in 2 stages. So are you talking about February Revolution or you're talking about October Revolution? And if the child writes about anything, the child is not wrong. So we have to be very, very clear that we provide full information to the child, because that makes your question free of any kind of ambiguity. So to make the question clear, to make the question sharp, it is very, very important that the question should have full information so that it is free of ambiguity and we get the kind of answer that we want. Again, the language should be simple and age appropriate, as we have been discussing in the tips for MCQ as well, that we have to understand and give due importance to it, that we are not here to test the language of the child, but we are here to test the knowledge of the subject of the child. So please avoid using difficult words and difficult terms. Those can be discussed in the class, but not in the question paper. Now, when we are talking of language and other things, important thing here is, last thing, as I talked about before MCQs and FRQs, the first thing was competency based questions. So we just have to understand what are competency based questions. Competency based questions are basically the questions which are trying to test the skills of the child, the learning skills. Has the child understood? These kind of questions help us in identifying whether there are any misconceptions. Okay, like we had one question, for example, that India was, a group called India was formed before the elections of 2024, Lok Sabha elections of 2024. So this group is or will be known as, and the options are alliance or coalition or majority government or whatever. Now this kind of a question is basically to identify whether the child has been able to understand the difference between an alliance and a coalition. So this is a competency based question where we are trying to identify whether there is a gap in the learning, also till what level the child has understood the concept, whether the concept is clear or not, right? So there are different skills or cognitive domains as we talk about, we'll see. So we have to see competency based questions basically test these cognitive domains, that till what level the child is now prepared or is now ready. Competency based questions include selected response questions. Now these selected response questions are the MCQs, okay, as well as pre-response questions or the source based questions as we talked about, or the data interpretation kind of questions where the data is given. You must have seen, few teachers may be using, or few sample papers may be using a data, and they ask a direct question. Okay, what was the growth of Indian economy or GDP in, let's say, year 1993? आपने data दिया, आपने direct उसका question पूछा. It is not competency based. The child simply has to see and write. If you're asking the reasons behind, like in economics, sectors of Indian economy, there is a graph where they are talking about development of 3 sectors and their contribution to GDP. So when you show the data and you ask about the reasons behind that change, right? So that is a competency based question. When we are trying to see how much the child is able to understand, how much the child is able to figure out, how much the child is able to reason out. So these are competency based questions. So please be very, very clear with this, that MCQs as well as FRQs, both kind of questions can be competency based questions. Now, to develop these competency based questions, important aspect for us is Bloom's taxonomy. Now, this is revised Bloom's taxonomy. CBSE has been trying to focus only on first 3, to some extent to level 4 as well, creating and evaluating. For the time being, thoda sa CBSE is trying to, a bit apprehensive about the usage of this, though. You may find a few questions like where you have to support your argument. For example, in this year's sample question paper that the CBSE has released, there's a question where they are asking that, women empowerment has taken place. And if you agree with the statement, So support your statement with valid illustrations. So those kind of things can be there, though the book never says that there is development or the women empowerment has been done. What we read in that chapter is all about discrimination and how women are lagging behind and what are the factors of gender discrimination. But again, this is the competency that when we have been talking about all this, somewhere we do talk about empowerment, because feminist movements were responsible for empowerment only. So has anything happened in that field or not? Right? So those kind of questions are there, but their ratio is not much. The proportion in which they are asked, there can be just one or two questions, not many of them. Right? So CBSE is still focusing more on analyzing, applying, understanding kind of things. And obviously remembering, because that is the easiest one for children. Right? Now, Bloom's taxonomy, how is it helpful to us? Bloom's taxonomy basically helps us to pick up question verbs. What you can see in the last column, where for remembering we have defined, duplicate, list, memorize, recall, repeat kind of things. Then for understanding you have classify, describe, discuss, explain kind of things. Applying you have choose, demonstrate, illustrate, interpret kind of things. Analyzing you have apprise, compare, contrast, criticize, differentiate kind of things. Now these question verbs are important for us, because when you prepare the questions, you do need all these kind of words. So once you have identified what is the cognitive domain for which you want to question the child, once you have identified your testing objective, do use these words, because these verbs are used by teachers across India, and obviously the paper setters also. And you never know, you may be a paper setter for CBSE at some point of time. So use these question verbs. Also familiarize your students with these question verbs, because the more you use them, the more you tell them, the child is immediately able to pick up that what kind of question is it? Is it analyze? Is it application? Is it understanding? Whatever, and then the child is in a better position. The child is better equipped to answer the question, right? So please do try to use these verbs used in Bloom's taxonomy for preparing your questions. They are really handy and really helpful for the child as well. Now, next important thing for us, because the syllabus is too vast, So for us, it is, I don't know what's happening with the slide. Why is it not shifting? Okay. The next important thing is what is to be tested, because the syllabus is too vast. And social science, the main problem is every word, every line can be tested. There can be, I would say, almost 500 questions you can prepare from a chapter. So when you can prepare 500 questions from a chapter, it's a difficult task for the teacher, that what should be tested. When you're teaching, there is so much. Every time you feel like going into the detail, but when you have to evaluate, when you have to assess, we have to narrow down our zone. We have to come to those important things and to understand what we need to pick up. We have this very beautiful diagram given by Wiggins and McTee in the book Understanding by Design. This basically will help you, classify your chapter under different heads. Whatever is your content for every chapter, classify your content under these three heads: worth being familiar with, important to know and do, and enduring understanding. Right? Now, worth being familiar with are the questions that which you want students just to hear, read, review, view and research. ठीक है, बच्चा जो है वो देख ले, समझ ले, घर जाके अपना थोड़ा बहुत उस पर पढ़ ले. But we are not focusing much on that. It can be like dates, it can be like names, which even if we don't ask, it doesn't matter much, because CBSE itself is avoiding asking these kind of questions where we are talking about who created this painting kind of a thing, or in which year was this painting created. No dates, please, especially for social science. We've moved beyond the concept of dates. So no dates, avoid that, right? Now, second is important to know and do, which is knowledge, where we are talking about facts, concepts and skills. right? Now, this is something which is more important than worth being familiar with. So these are the things which we can take up for our FRQs. And when we move on to enduring understanding, these are the basis of the chapters. These are the concepts around which the entire chapter is created, or on which the entire chapter is based. So these are very, very important. So when we take up case study type questions, when we take up source based kind of questions, or when we are taking, let's say, analytical questions, so these are the topics which should be taken. Okay, so covering or classifying your entire topic or your chapter into these kind of topics will surely help you pick up things, because we don't have to focus much on things worth being familiar with. You can put some emphasis on important to know and do, and most important are the enduring understanding. So as you take up questions, please try to see to which circle or to under which category your topic falls, and accordingly give importance to that. Okay, now you can use these kind of things like worth being familiar with. Normally, as you can see, the questions where we are creating who, what, when, where. So when did the first war of independence happen, or where did it start? Those kind of questions. It hardly matters if it started in Kanpur or in Meerut. Basically it started, and the important thing is that what events led to it, right? So you see, more important than what, where, when, or who is how it started, right? Why it started. Those things are important. And finally, when we talk of enduring understanding, things like the impact that it had on other aspects of life. Okay, now a few important tips that everyone can use when you prepare these questions. So identify a group of questions from every chapter. In social science, obviously the number of chapters is too huge, but even then you can identify 4 to 5 questions from every chapter. Though please understand that in social science there can be the magnitude of questions is too huge. So it's not that if you identify 4 questions and you give them to students, so there will be only questions from those 4 questions. But yes, when I say identify a group of questions from every chapter, that means that 4 to 5 questions, or probably 5 to 6 questions, which some way are covering the most important topics, or as we talked about, the topics of enduring understanding for the students. Okay, then use situations or application based questions. News items, case studies, or database from newspapers like Hindu can be taken up, as Hindu provides all kind of case study kind of material. It provides all kind of datas. It provides all kind of pie charts and bar diagrams or bar graphs, whatever. So that really comes handy when you have to prepare questions. Cover for discussion type questions. हर chapter में कहीं ना कहीं कुछ questions इस तरह के दिए हुए हैं which are not there at the back of the chapter. They are simply there in between the chapters, which are for discussion only. Probably they are not asking you to write them, and probably they are not even evaluated so many times. But yes, they are the impact of those processes which we are discussing, so can be interpreted in different way and can be asked as well. Use timelines, flowcharts for history, and concept maps for civics. I'll just give you an example of a concept map. Now, this is a concept map for civics. It covers the entire chapter of federalism, the chapter 2 in civics. It covers the entire chapter. You can see the heading, then you can see the main topics. What is federalism, practicing federalism, decentralization and federalism in India. Now, these are the main topics on which the chapter is based. Further, what is federalism is divided into 4 parts: the meaning, types, differences, and features of federalism. Likewise, practicing federalism again has 3 parts. Federalism in India again has 3 parts, and decentralization has those 5 parts. So likewise, this concept map can be further elaborated as well. You can ask the child to elaborate this concept map further, and you will see that the entire chapter can be covered up on 1 or 2 pages also. It helps the child to revise them. It helps the child to identify what is the important topic here. Okay, and in one go the child will know, okay, when I'm talking about the chapter political parties. These are the 4 concepts. These are the branches of these concepts, and this is the entire content of the chapter. So as a teacher, if you are also aware of these kind of things, it becomes easy for you to guide the child. Boxes and cross pages can be used for case study type questions, and cross pages are especially in civics. Boxes are given in geography as well as economics and history. So those can be used for case study type questions. So please do not leave them even while teaching, or when you are preparing a question paper, you can use them because that is the extra information but related to the chapter. For case study type question, 2-mark question that we take up has to be analytical. Familiarize students with Bloom's taxonomy. Pick up lines from textbook for statement-based questions. Use AR or match the column kind of things. Also pick up questions from areas which students are sure to miss out. This is very, very important here. A teacher has to play with child's brain. So many times, we know that the child may leave, may not study. This is the mistake that the children committed in the last question papers, or this is how the children interpreted this question in the board exam, right? So all these kind of mistakes which we know should be taken up by the teacher in the question paper that the teacher is preparing, so that you can tell the students at a later stage about what not to do and how to attempt these questions. Also, please have a strategy in your mind while preparing the question. That strategy can be that this time you want to motivate the children. Next can be that you want to tell them, okay, you are still not reaching 100 on 100. So whatever may be there, but you must have a strategy. And this is the SQP, which I'm sorry, probably I'll not be able to discuss, but I have shared 2 question papers, sample question papers with you, which you can see. And in case there is any query, it can be posted to me later on through Anil Sharma sir. Thank you so much. I guess that's all for today. Thank you. Neha ma'am, you can take over.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions that our teacher want to ask? Because still 8 minutes are there, ma'am. You can, if you want, you can put certain more things in that.
Okay, I can take up the question paper, sir.
At least for 5 minutes, you can discuss something.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Yes. Okay. Fine. Now, so what we can have here is, looking at these questions here, I guess important ones can be right. Now, see, this is one question where the image is not from NCERT. And so many times when you introduce these kind of images, you first thing can be, okay, this is out of syllabus question, not given in NCERT or whatever. But please understand, if you read the question is very much from NCERT. So these kind of questions where we are using the concept of NCERT, but the image, from somewhere else. So this is application of the concept which they have learned in the class. So please, you can move beyond NCERT for use of images only for application based, where the concept is in NCERT, but the application or the image can be taken up from anywhere else, as I have been talking about, that we can use newspapers like The Hindu or other things can be taken up, right? Now also we can have a look at case study type questions. Now as you can see here, now this is a case study type question, right? This is from the chapter Print and Culture. Now, which law made the basis for Vernacular Press Act? Obviously, the answer would be given straight there. What powers were given to the government under Vernacular Press Act? Again, the answer would be there. But when we talk about which 2 factors forced the colonial government to pass Vernacular Press Act, now this is what we need to apprise the children about, that the last question, which will be a 2-mark question, probably they may not find the answer as it is in the passage. right? So they have to look beyond that passage, because the passage has been taken up from the chapter itself or from any of the boxes from the chapter. So the child needs to understand कि okay, किस context में हम बात कर रहे हैं and what can be the probable answer. Also, one thing that I came across this time, there was, when you are looking at the sample question papers, please do not go by the misnomer that whatever source is given in the question paper will be there in the board exam also. Because the earlier SQP did not talk about source from civics, but this year's board paper had a source from civics. Interesting part further was that the questions that were asked, even for 1 mark, the answers given in the passage, there were 2 answers. The answer key took up only 1 answer. Thus, the child who was writing another answer was not given marks. So please make children understand, or even when you prepare the answer key, ensure again, as we were talking about, that either there is only 1 correct answer. If there is answer in more than 1 lines, please incorporate all those lines and tell the child that the question may be for 1 mark. But if there are 2 lines, if there are 3 lines, the child must use all those 2 to 3 lines. Okay. Likewise, when we are talking about 2 marks question, where we have like, here the question clearly says, which 2 factors forced? Let us say the question was, which factors forced the colonial government to pass Vernacular Press Act? Now, when we are saying that, okay, so that simply means that if the question is for 2 marks, the child must write minimum 2 points. If the child is writing in lesser points, the evaluator may not give the marks. So likewise, you also have to design your question, develop your questions in a way that either the question gives clear instructions to the child that 2 points are needed. If that is missing, then please make the children understand that for a 2 mark question, minimum 2 points. The child may want to use more than 2 points, perfectly good enough, right? Likewise, we can also have a look at the map questions which are given here. The way map question can be taken up is simple. We will have a map where we have, 2 places which are to be identified. The hints would be given. Now this year there is a change in map for history. The change is that the place Chauri Chaura. This is last year's paper, so it is there. The place associated with falling off of the non-cooperation movement, Chauri Chaura. This time it is not in the syllabus. Earlier there used to be 9 places that were to be identified. This year there are only 8 places, right? But the way the map work is going to do, it is going to be identification, where you will have places given, where you will have hints given, and the child just has to identify those places with the help of given hints. As far as geography is concerned, we are very clear. The children will be given 4 places, and there is an internal choice, right? Also, when we are talking about choice, important aspect for the teachers as well as for the students is, let's say we have this section D where we have questions for 5 marks. So when we have an internal choice, we need to make children also understand that please pick up a question which is for which the child can answer in a better way, not the question which is very difficult or which is very easy. For 5 mark question, tell the child identify 5 clear points. And likewise, even your question should be prepared like that. Like if you have a look at question 31, mention 5 events between 1919 to 1929 which shaped Indian politics towards 1930s. Now this question is very elaborative otherwise, but then we have asked child about the clear 5 points, right? So likewise, when you are preparing a question, the question should very specifically explain to the child that what are you asking for. Thank you so much. Neha ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request Dr. A.K. Sharma, sir, to address us and share his valuable views?
Somebody, I think Neha want to ask something.
No, sir. I am just from here for the vote of thanks, sir.
Okay, okay,
Concluding this.
just. I thought that you are saying something. So thank you very much. Only I want to add one thing. Uh, it was a beautiful session. I have thoroughly enjoyed. As a social study teacher, I just want to say one thing, that your responsibility is manifold. Recently, you might be knowing that NCERT Class 3 textbooks are sparking controversy because there is a chapter where the people are saying that allegations of love jihad is there. It is a lesson in which a Hindu girl is writing a letter to the Muslim boy. चिट्ठी आई है, and this is a very controversial. This is classified as a very controversial letter. How a Hindu girl is writing a letter to the Muslim boy, asking him to visit her place during vacation. So the people are saying that it can be a matter of love jihad. So now it is in the court. So as a social study teacher, you have to see that what language have to be used.
Yes.
And what type of question. It is one side I have said to you, but it can be on the gender bias. It can be any triangle. So whenever you are making a paper, take a balanced look and see, because the people are not looking to your angle. The people are looking to the balanced angle. It can be anyone. So, Madam, beautifully you explained. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, first of all, I would like to put on record my sincere thanks to you, the person behind the endeavor, as without your efforts, we couldn't have got such learning experiences. Thank you, sir. I extend my gratitude towards our resource person, our own Sunita ma'am. Ma'am, we are grateful for your presence and contributions to the workshops, a workshop on design and development of the question paper framing for social science. Your effective presentation consisting on CBSE circular defining competency-based questions, framing of multiple choice questions, free response questions, and also the exclusive tips to prepare the good question paper using the Bloom's taxonomy for a balanced question paper have enlightened us. I thank you for sharing your valuable time and your expertise. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.